1900, a Victorian interior. Whose? The room of a man with scientific bent, that's certain. Elementary, my dear Watson. Popular? Perhaps, but feared by some. Right again, Watson. And isn't that the dummy of himself he placed in the window to foil the sharpshooter in the Moriarty affair? You're improving, Watson, I do declare. The Victoria Regina he traced in bullets in that same final adventure. Tobacco kept in the Persian slipper. His bottle of cocaine. And in the corner, oh yes, of course, the violin. On the wall above, the dancing men. And over on that other wall, the relic of what was it, the speckled band. What a sinister episode. His desk. And among the objects on it, a portrait. The one woman in his life. But no names, please. Not long departed. Teapot still warm. And yet he's left his hypodermic. Has he now? Dear me, Watson, no time to waste. Pray pass me my dear stalker and call us a hansom. Adventure. The keynote of Sherlock Holmes. And why not? Even in the changing world of 1900, adventure could still be found for the asking. If you grew weary of pushing a clerk's pen or swinging a navvy's pick, you could still find, plenty of adventure under the sun. For instance, there was still the air to conquer. As yet, only balloons and airships had risen into that element. But though the first heavier-than-air machine had yet to take off, progress was such that already flying was considered safe for ladies. In moderation, of course. Highly instructive, in fact. Plenty of adventure under the sun. You could still run away to sea and go round the Horn in a windjammer. To anyone wanting excitement, the trip could offer plenty. And on ships like this, if you had problems of personal timidity, a rope's end from the mate soon put an end to those. Work as you'd never worked before. Slave your way to new lands where opportunity knocked, to find gold nuggets or a pauper's grave. The price of the passage was still the same. Plenty of adventure under the sun. You could still be first at the North Pole or the South, for there no man had yet trod. Only you'd have to make the journey on your own feet and with your own sweat, and no one would know about it until you got back, if you ever did. For those seeking isolation, there remain plenty of places where you could be alone, in the silent wilderness of nature, out of touch with all men. Get rich quick. You could still plant a stake on a diamond or a gold field, but you had to be tough enough to defend it against all comers. Nowadays, it's football pools. You could still be first to conquer any one of 100 virgin peaks, from the Matterhorn to Everest. Room and scope up there for a stout heart and a strong rope. Plenty of adventure under the sun. Seek oil or a pharaoh's tomb, and what's more, probably find it. For then the odds were more favorable, the competition less. Still strange and wonderful places to discover for science. Still people who had never seen a European, unspoiled and not yet tourist-minded. And if all else failed, well, there was always soldiering for the Queen. For in her service was adventure with some degree of security, as far as pay and food at any rate. Sweating it out in the Sudan, in Africa and India, defending the flag upon which the sun never sets. Soldiers of the Queen. But then one day in 1901, were soldiers of the Queen no longer. Even a century must reach its end, even a queen who had reigned for 63 years. Don the black and beat the drums, for the Queen was dead. The Queen who had been on the throne for so long that England could hardly credit her death. England wouldn't be the same without the Queen. Behind the gun carriage rode her son, Edward, and representatives of every kingdom in Europe. Europe wouldn't be the same without Victoria. And as at Windsor they bore the widow to her last resting place, there were many who wondered, fearful of change, unsure of the future, unsure of themselves. Yet, paradoxically enough, the reign of Victoria had known greater change in the world than any other 60 years in history. When Victoria was born in 1819, England was toll roads, coaches, and stand and deliver. Most of its tiny population still in the cottage, knowing only its village and living only on what it could itself produce. But even before the young princess mounted the throne, mud to cobbles. James Watt had watched a tea kettle, and that was the end of much, ground into oblivion by the power of steam. Stevenson, Brunel, and all aboard. Waterloo had shaped the Europe Victoria was born into, and war was to redraw its maps again and again before her passing. Crimea, Sebastopol, Lord Cardigan, and Florence Nightingale. Charged for the guns, they said. French Empire versus Prussian, Bismarck and Sedan. The French monarchy wanes, a new Germany is born, a united Italy created. Yet the strife was seldom Victoria's, so all the while her own realm prospered and swelled to 8 times its original size. Revolutions, new tyrannies, new freedoms. In North America, a war between states finally brought forth a new nation, fully united by the people for the people. The wagon trains roll back the frontiers westward to the Rocky Mountains and beyond. Go west, young man, go west, to seek, find, and create. To release new wealth destined one day to outstrip even Victoria's. The potential was there, all that remained was moving forward. But the whole century was moving forward in communications, in science and medicine, reason and thought, and above all, in industry. Never had there been such expansion. Sprawling, messy, but where there's muck, there's money. At the end of her reign, Victoria saw a transformed world, and all around her were mighty monuments to those who had had vision and courage. A transformed world moving forward with ever-increasing speed. And yet, not the same without the Queen. Goodbye, Victoria. Farewell, a way of life, a state of mind. The Queen is dead. Long live the King. Thus, late in his life, the throne passed to Edward, Prince of Wales. His but 10 years, yet nobody could deny that he made the most of them. Then to his son George, who was to know the greatest war. Oh, but that's in the future. So Britain made ready for a coronation, a ceremony that at last happened so many years back that most people had forgotten how to crown a monarch. That was the coronation that began the era that the world now calls Edwardian. And that, too, was a time to be remembered. For as everybody knows, the Edwardian keynote was gaiety. A reaction against the stern, the "I am gravely displeased, drink your port, Elizabeth, and earn your father's approval," maybe. Or was it just a part of the inevitable progress? A change of social order a little delayed by a greatly loved but rather formidable old lady. Who knows? A new century. Yet all the same, there were many who looked back upon the old days with a sigh and a tear dabbed away with a lace-edged handkerchief. For they had known their moments, these Victorians, amid their aspidestras.